Ewok. We always have an Ewok, but we've an Ewok today.
Ewok has been here so long, just waiting for this day. Like, he showed up one day thinking it was his day, and he hasn't left since. Now it's finally it's mine. That time. But speaking of small furry animals, today is a very special day for, I know both of you have been waiting for this. I know we got lots of folks out there watching this podcast that enjoy our Star Wars related content. They've probably been waiting for this because we've been hinting at it for a long time. But what we're about to discuss today is one of the most specifically interesting and surprisingly deep topics within the Star Wars universe, which is the planet Endor, or rather the moon Endor. It's not a planet. It orbits a gas giant. So it's like Titan in our solar system. But it's a moon, and its inhabitants, which include but are not limited to Ewoks. So how much do you guys think you know about Ewoks? Like, just humor me. Let me know everything you know off the top of your head.
The sixth movie.
Yep.
They have like spears, not spheres.
Yeah.
Spears and bow and arrows, and so it's a little bit more low tech.
Yeah.
They live in tree houses.
They probably got spheres too. I mean, their eyes are spherical.
That's true.
Unless they're like owls and their eyes are tubes. Owls' eyes are tubes. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I also say that the rebellion would have failed without the Ewoks.
I think that is 100% accurate. And you're going to learn today that a lot more in the universe could have gone very wrong without the presence of the Ewoks and other guardians of the Forest Moon of Endor. But it goes much deeper than you would have ever thought. They're not just little fuzzy guys that happen to help in one battle. They have a whole history of their own, as does the moon that they live on. I have to keep fighting not to say planet. It's not a planet. Yeah. We're going to get the correct celestial body here. But there is an untold lore of Endor and Ewoks that I've been delving into while making this presentation. I learned stuff during research for this that I didn't know. This is not all off the top of my head. My mind has been blown like 3 times over just looking into what I thought were like some little fuzzy guys. And their world is like a world of its own within the larger Star Wars universe. It is like a separate universe, a micro universe, you could say, within the larger galaxy that is playing by its own rules. It has its own way of working. Things happen there that don't happen anywhere else. And I think we're about to get into it here, but there you go. A couple badass pictures of Ewoks I was able to find because I think they're badass. I know some people here don't think they are. I know Adam thinks they're kind of lame. That's true, isn't it, Kelsey?
Yeah. He's just not as big of a fan of them. He just thinks they're a little kiddish, but they're awesome. I think they're so good. I love that they're kiddish.
Adam can watch this episode after we're done recording it, and maybe he'll reevaluate his opinions. So anyway, how much Ewok media is there? It's more than you think. I've been talking to you guys about this as I've been researching Ewoks, but beyond just appearing in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, where they helped the Rebel Alliance defeat the Galactic Empire, they also appeared in a 1984 TV movie called Caravan of Courage, an Ewok Adventure. And then in 1985, it had a sequel, Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. Now, did you know either of those existed before I tipped you off about them?
I think the Battle of Endor I've heard of.
Well, yeah, there's definitely the Battle of Endor.
The Ewoks won that one, but I think that's the first one. Well, I think I've heard that there was a movie, but
yeah, but you've never seen them.
Oh, I've never seen it. No.
I think that's fascinating that like no one has seen these movies. Because it's the kind of thing where you'll tell somebody there's Star Wars movies you haven't seen, and Star Wars fans will be like, what? They feel like they've been living under a rock. But I think many would agree who have seen these movies that that's a rock worth living under. But aside from that, there's also the 1985 animated series Ewoks. And they did make a brief cameo in Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So we had some Ewok action happening there, maybe behind the scenes. But here we go. Have you ever seen this? This is the Ewoks cartoon. This is how it opened. They had these amazing cartoon designs. This was like peak 1980s, early 1990s kind of cartoon aesthetic. You can see the faces of some of the famous Ewoks.
Very early Disney.
It's very Disney-esque. It reminds me of like the Robin Hood movie and like the Fox and the Hound, those kind of movies.
It's giving Chippendales to me.
Chippendale, yeah, that's it. That's why I couldn't get off the tip of my tongue. It's like Chippendale. They had to have been very Disney-inspired.
Yeah.
This, of course, being before Disney owned Star Wars, so you have to keep that in mind. But some Ewoks I do want to point out in this picture. Wicket is the main Ewok. I think Wicket here is this one in the top right. Although I could be wrong, the one with the bandana. Wicket being the one that was like sort of the hero of Return of the Jedi, the one that was played by Warwick Davis, the little guy who was also the star of Willow. I think we talked about him a little bit, but he's the one in the suit. Great actor. The one on the far right with the beard is one of my favorite Ewoks personally. His name is Logray. He is the Ewok shaman. He's like the medicine man. And he did appear in Return of the Jedi as well. You can see him kind of like doing some shaman stuff, but he's not named in the movie. You'd never know who he was. The show expanded on him and gave him this great cartoon redesign. And there's a lot of Logray stuff I'll talk about today because I think he's a cool shaman. But let's talk about the Ewoks cartoon some more. So 1980s, the animated Ewok show followed the adventures of the Ewoks of Bright Tree Village. That was the name of the Ewok village. You learned it in this show. It's on the Forest Moon of Endor, not a planet. This is before the events of Return of the Jedi, so this is a prequel. This is before they have made contact with any humans, really. It is intended for younger viewers. I mean, Saturday morning cartoon, you get the idea.
Yeah.
This was produced by Lucasfilm, and Nelvana Studios helped them animate this. I don't know anything about Nelvana Studios or what else they've done. Maybe they've made some other gems. How would I know? Ewoks, they often face threats from several adversaries within the episodes of this show. You saw a lot of the Duloks, which were not in the movies, but this show introduced the Duloks, who are a rival species of green-furred creatures that also live on the Forest Moon of Endor. They're just basically a bunch of wormy bastards that just want to fuck up the Ewoks' days a lot of the time. Very cartoonish villains. But then the big villain in the show was Morag the Tolga Witch. This was a sorceress with a grudge against the Ewok shaman, Master Logray. They were like magical rivals.
Okay.
But Morag was an evil witch. Actually, she's a lot more than an evil witch, but we're going to talk about that today too later. Just wanted to mess with the Ewoks. Again, here's some Duloks. This is what those guys looked like.
Is it the Grinch?
That's right.
They're very Dr. Seuss-esque.
Yeah.
It's like if you took the Grinch and combined him with the Sneetches. Because like every one of the Duloks, as you can see in this left cell from the show, has these symbols on their bellies, much like the Sneetches with the stars upon theirs. But I love this image on the right, this like art that I was able to find of Duloks, the one that's just like snatched an Ewok.
Yeah.
And that Ewok is probably thinking like, man, it's not my lucky day.
I like the baby one.
Yeah, the little one in the corner. I guess that's a
Diaper.
a little juvenile Dulok, but you can basically picture how these guys would have been just like wringing their hands like, that's Duloks.
And they don't have clothes
No, they don't.
compared to like Ewoks who have clothes, who also are furry.
Ewoks are more civilized than Duloks, I
As
would
I
bet.
tell you, yeah.
But this is Morag, the main antagonist. Get a good look at Morag here because we're going to be discussing her a lot. She's a lot more complex than I thought she was ever going to be, especially after you've read Supernatural Encounters.
Ooh.
I love the mouth because it reminds me of like a SpongeBob character. A kind of
exactly.
sweet kind of creature.
Yeah. I think what she is supposed to be,
Or
I do have a note about that. Morag is supposed to belong to the Tolga species. That was the species that it was thought for a long time she belonged to, because these guys did appear in some more Star Wars stuff. There's just a different individual of that species. Beautiful creature. But it's actually revealed, or contested at least in Supernatural Encounters, that she even belonged to that species at all, because there was also a different kind of creature on Endor that had the same face. And I think Supernatural Encounters does make the argument like it was probably more likely that was the creature it was than just one of these guys.
Okay.
But there's more to that story we'll delve into as we get there. Morag, as we know her in the show, is just a sorceress residing on Endor. How did she get there? How long has she been there? We don't know as far as the show goes, but we learned that in Supernatural Encounters. And the big thing that Morag did that was just like an affront to all the Ewoks and a big sort of like, haha, I'm so evil. She stole from them a powerful artifact called the Sunstar Shadow Stone, which is this jelly bean we're seeing here. Much like the Selena Gomez Oreos we just ate before this podcast, it's like double layered. It has these two components to it. The one that's the Sun Star is the bright yellow, bringer of light. And then there's the Shadow Stone, which is fused to it as the purple thing. So it's like a light and dark kind of thing. And she wanted to conquer the whole moon of Endor with the power of this stone. So Morag, before she could use the artifact that she had stolen, the stone was broken in half by my favorite Ewok, Logray. Logray was kind of taken into Morag's lair and was sort of believed to be like, all right, now you're my slave, you're going to do my bidding. But he rebelled, as good slaves do, rebel against their masters. And with the light side of the stone, the Sun Star, he used those powers that he learned from actually watching Morag. He figured out how to use it for himself. And he figured out, all right, now I have this power, and I'm going to use it to protect my village from evil going forward. So he became the protector of all Ewoks. And with the dark side of the stone, the Shadow Stone, Morag kept that, and she menaced the Ewoks for nearly 200 local years. So I don't know how long-lived Ewoks are. Somehow, just from reading all this Ewok lore, I'm getting the impression they live longer lives than we would think.
Yeah.
But like these events take place over a long time scale, longer than I would have thought for sure. Oh, wow. But now let's talk about the movies. These were the VHS covers of the two movies here, Caravan of Courage and The Battle for Endor. It's very like epic. This makes it look like something so epic, but then if you saw the movies, you would probably be so disappointed. The Ewoks movies were made for TV. They never got shown in theaters. They were not even considered worthy of being shown next to Star Wars. And Ewok Adventure was the first one, Caravan of Courage, and then Ewoks The Battle for Endor. These focused on a human family's adventures with the Ewoks on the Forest Moon of Endor. It was the Towani family was their names. Parents were Jeremit and Katarine, and their children were named Mace and Sindel. So before there was Mace Windu, there was Mace Towani. This was the original Mace.
It's just a common name.
You know, in Star Wars, it's like John. Yeah?
Yes.
Returning to our frequent topic of discussion that everything is just John.
Yes, everything is Mace.
Mace is his name was John Windu all along. So they crash land on Endor in some terrible accident. When the parents go missing, the children get found and befriended by the Ewoks. Wicket becomes like their best friend, and they got to work with him. You can see like half of his face in this picture to just go on these adventures, stop some baddies, and reunite their family.
He just looks like Luke Skywalker wannabe.
I know,
and then it's like that's what he looks like. And then I was just thinking, like, they're so lucky that the children didn't get eaten by the Ewoks.
Oh yeah, the Ewoks would have
tried to
eaten
eat
them.
adults. Like,
They did
in the sixth movie
I didn't even think about that.
because they tried to cook Han Solo.
Great. Oh, yes.
They tried to cook him. So
Why
I'm
were those
saying,
Ewoks trying to eat them?
but if they were going to eat them, why not eat the children?
Maybe they're just
easier.
They were just goofing. They were just messing with Han.
Maybe it was a test. I don't know how to answer that lore conundrum.
They had him above the fire. So
This is something we got to address in the next Ewok episode.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, this could have been like a very serious famine at the time.
Maybe.
Here.
Oh no. We need a paper towel. Save the Ewok. No. He got some coffee on his toe. All right, so we took a brief break there because we had a little cleanup on L5, but thankfully none of our equipment got wet.
Nope.
Ewok here did take a little to his toe, but while we were cleaning him up, we made the connection that this is probably Wicket the Ewok that we have here because of his hood. It's the same as in this picture. So now we know that it's him. That feels like important lore. All the important lore we're going to discuss today. We also had Kelsey look up how old Ewoks are.
Yeah, they don't live that long. Most canon was saying like 60 to 70 years. And then I saw some people saying maybe up to 80. So it's kind of sad, but...
Yeah, it seems like they live longer than that based on the time scales of this. So I wonder if it's like an old canon thing.
Yeah, maybe it's like a magical thing too. Like maybe you're going to have some magic, you can live longer.
There's probably some
or
kind
also,
of magic
like, if
on
you have,
Endor that
I know
lets
they
you
don't
do
really
that.
have the Force, but you know the Force.
They do have the Force.
They do. Okay, good. But I was
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, I was going to say, because the Force helps you live longer.
I bet the shamans can live really long.
Okay.
Be like generational. But that's as far as we got here with the story of the Towani family and Wicket the Ewok. Here's another shot of the whole family here hanging out with their Ewok pal. They get along very swimmingly, and you just think this is like a postcard, right?
Yeah.
Well, it gets darker.
Oh.
The second movie is so much darker. It starts with marauders that arrive and kill most of the Towani family.
Okay.
Just in cold blood. I mean, the parents get killed. The older brother Mace gets killed. It leaves just little Sindel, who is all alone now with the Ewoks. So that's what happens. It's like, imagine growing up with the first one. All right, they wouldn't be growing up with the first one because it came out like a year later. But you watched the first one and you liked it. And then you went and saw the second one. And it starts with a slaughter of most of the characters you came to love in the first one.
I was
It's
about
like Game
to
of
say this sounds
Thrones.
fun.
Yeah, this was the original Game of Thrones.
I'll say
y'all.
Game of Thrones, like that traumatizes you watching all your favorite people die, and it's like,
Yeah, or like the people that hated the second Last of Us, or wasn't that true because they just instantly killed the character that you came to love in the first one?
Yeah.
So it's like that. They decided to just
very
kill
brutal.
them. Yeah, a brutal slaughter at the start of this second movie. So the plot of the second movie is young Sindel escaping with Wicket, and then she has to go rescue the captured Ewoks that these marauders also took, and they have to defeat the marauders. But Sindel is orphaned. Just like, look at her. Look at this character.
Like,
Why did they put this character character through this. Most characters in Star Wars, like the actual saga, suffered less than this.
I also just don't like seeing that she's smiling. She just had
I
a whole
know.
family slaughtered. What are you smiling about?
Yeah. Maybe she hated them the whole time.
Maybe she was smiling because she enjoyed watching.
Oh my god.
Yeah, a little.
That's what she was like. This is her Sith story. Like she's gonna come
Oh
back.
yeah, Sith Lord Sindel Tawani.
Yes.
One day, the seeds of that have been planted here at the first sight of blood. But there was also an interesting sort of secondary antagonist in this second one. This was a witch named Cheryl. I don't know how you pronounce that. It'd be funny if it's just pronounced Cheryl. Just the thought of someone
Yeah.
named Cheryl existing in the Star Wars universe. But she's actually a Night Sister witch
Love
from
Night
Dathomir.
Sisters.
And this is the first live action appearance of a Night Sister witch in all of Star Wars. It was 38 years later that they appeared again outside of a cartoon or a comic or anything, just with actual actors playing them in the Ahsoka show. And I guess it wasn't clear when this came out that this was what she was, a witch from Dathomir. But later material tied back to her and explained the connection, saying like, oh yeah, that's where this witch came from. Mother Talzin, who is Darth Maul's mom, actually mentioned her by name and said that one of her sisters has yet to return the talisman of the Raven, which is what she has in this movie.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah,
The
the
wings.
feature,
Yeah.
She actually has a power to turn into a raven. That's like her
Oh.
signature magic. But look at this woman. Look at this
cool.
character. This looks like one of those characters from those bad 80s fantasy movies,
Yeah.
like Red Sonja or some shit, where it's like,
We need to make one of those movies. Just
I
for
think we
fun,
should
like
one
a
day.
Short.
it'd be
I
fun.
would
Just like
love
put
it.
on costumes like that and do some kind of crazy wizard movie.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
But that connection was revealed in something called the Book of the Sith, The Secrets of the Dark Side, which actually has a lot of ties to supernatural encounters. This is a canon book, or a Legends canon book, so not Disney canon.
Okay.
But it mentions Typhogem, I think.
yeah.
It mentions a lot of those things that are in supernatural encounters. And a lot of people use this book as evidence that, like, no, supernatural encounters is canon, or it has a place in canon,
Yeah.
because it ties back to this. So interesting connection there. Interesting character to exist alongside these Ewoks.
Also, I just think it's so weird to think of a raven being out in Star Wars world.
It gets weirder.
That's weird.
If you think that's weird, wait till you see what else is in this movie.
Okay.
Horses. That's what else. They have horses on Endor in these movies. Not strange creatures exclusive to the Star Wars universe. Just horses and ponies. I guess they didn't have any money to do creatures. Or
Yeah.
These were like made on a budget of scraps and hope, and they just used horses. So the Ewoks are riding around on these little ponies a lot, and there is just this random stallion that the witch uses.
I love it. She just
Has a different breed of horse.
Yeah.
it's also it's like a darker fur compared to the other horses.
Yeah.
Because she's evil.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The witch always has like the evil horse. I always wonder what those horses are thinking when you're like the horse that belongs to like, I don't know, like the ring wraiths from
Murder.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah. But it does reveal the interesting bit of lore that horses are just existing on Endor. They
wonder-
call them different things. I think the word for pony is like gaupa, and they don't say the word pony. And a horse is like a pulga, I think. Those are like the Ewok or Endor words for these creatures.
Goodness.
But they're just horses, man. There were ravens and horses in this movie, not strange creatures.
That's weird.
So why hasn't anyone seen these movies? I mean, no one has seen these, and a lot of people wonder why. But they were made for TV movies. That was one thing. Very low budgets. Once you see what's in these movies, it makes perfect sense. And they were aimed at young kids. They were not really aimed even at the same audience that Star Wars, the main movies, were. Initial viewership would have been limited to whoever's just watching them on TV at this specific date.
Oh, yeah.
And for so many years, it was almost impossible to get these things on home video. Like, they were not put on tape for a long time. You couldn't find them to bring home and watch.
Next movie night, guys.
Right.
I know. I
Add it
want
to
to
the
see these
list.
movies.
Yeah, we should go. We should do a double feature.
Yeah, I haven't seen these in their entirety, but just having researched them enough, I want to now, just to see what it's like.
I just want to get invested in a family and then immediately watch them get murdered. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be great. Double
Exactly.
feature it.
But then these were never included, like even when DVDs came out, and it's like every Star Wars thing there is in one box. These weren't included. So people just didn't know they existed. Mainstream audiences had no idea about these movies. And the ones that did see them, I think probably didn't help because they were not into them. Fans of the main trilogy were put off by the shift in tone from a space opera to sort of a children's fantasy adventure. Because that's very much what these feel like.
Yeah.
It's more Willow than Star Wars in this weird way. The first movie in particular is just this very like fairy tale story with like these little fairies and these fantasy things. And then the second one has this witch. And so it's not Darth Vader. If you're into Darth Vader, you're not going to find anything like him here. There's no lightsabers. It's almost like a different franchise, even if it's
so
connected.
weird.
So a lot of people probably saw these because it was Star Wars. And then they were like, why did they make this movie? Why did I watch this?
No, it sounds cute.
I know. I think now we can look back and appreciate them in this different kind of way.
But it would be whiplash to go a year apart from Star Wars to this.
Yeah, imagine
whiplash.
Watching Return of the Jedi and thinking like, oh my God, what are they going to do next with Star Wars? The answer was probably this. If you think about the order things were made, is before they were doing a lot of spin-offs. This was the next thing they made. 1985, 1984.
Then they buried it.
Yeah, for years. So now we move on from these two Ewok sources that are not from supernatural encounters, but it's just baseline knowledge that I think you should know about before we delve into this stuff from supernatural encounters. And now we're going to talk about what supernatural encounters brings to the table to expand on this Ewok stuff. So to talk a little bit about Endor itself, the one thing that you should know, because this name is going to keep coming up, it was originally called Lesser Tana or Lesser Tana. I don't know how it's pronounced, but that's the original name of the planet in the very early days of the universe. So we're not going to use the name Endor a lot while we're talking about these earlier histories of the Forest Moon. So during the era of the Cosmic Wars, that was the name it was given. Greater Tana, in contrast, was the gas giant planet that it orbited, and the sun was known as Iblim. So that's just like the solar system and its planets and the entirety there. The sector that it's within, I think, is called the Model sector as well. So that's another name that might or might not come up, just to like put it on a map in the galaxy. But those are the names to remember here, because the name Endor didn't come out for a while. I think the reason it got the name Endor eventually was because there was a precursor race that lived on Endor before anything else called the Indor, not the Endor, but the Indor. So they were one of the firstborn races that were designed directly by the Celestials. If you remember from that first episode, we discussed a bunch of them. And these were described, even though we don't really have pictures of them beyond this impression here.
But it's so good. That's a real, I would have that in my house.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this fascinating?
So beautiful.
It looks like a cryptid, but also a god in this weird way. And I think that's the perfect way to describe these guys. The only description of them we have is that they were 6 meter tall, gigantic beings that were covered in green fur. Some of them had 6 arms. Some of them had 4 arms. They were just these towering things. And they did possess a very strong innate connection to the Force. And they used it in their own special way from any other being in what was later called Tanaic magic, because they're on the planet, the moon Lesser Tana. So I guess that's where the name comes from. But this is a very different way of using the Force than anybody in the Star Wars movies. A very kind of shamanic approach to the Force that has these like incantations and this language that they use, runes.
I love this.
It's fascinating. Like there's nothing else in the Star Wars universe that even approaches this. That's why I'm so fascinated by Endor the more I've read about it.
Yeah.
But these creatures, the Indor, they figured out pretty early on that the galaxy was about to be invaded and plunged into war, because this was the time, basically, I think it was called the Empyrean Wars. Part of the Cosmic Wars, the first sort of saga of the Cosmic Wars, I guess you could say, where the main galaxy Sky River was basically being besieged and invaded constantly by the alternate universe of Ilathorion, where everything's dark and scary. And the architects and the old ones have just launched these armies of dark and evil things to try and take over all they can take over. So this planet prepared, though. The Indor knew this was coming, and they did a lot of time preparing. It's like that meme about Batman, where like if you prepare, you can beat anybody. They prepared their world for the invasion by the architects and their minions. And they were able to pour all of their life force into 2 trees, the Father Tree and the Tree of Light. This is very interesting to me, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But they were diminished by this sacrifice into beings called Wisties. That's what we see here. And those exist on Endor to this day.
Oh,
so you can see the similarity, right?
Yeah.
With like the limbs of light that sort of echo the giant creature with its limbs.
Interesting.
But these are just tiny. They're like little fairies that
that's
fit
what
in
I was
your
thinking. I was
hand.
thinking Tinkerbell when I see them.
Yeah, it's Tinkerbell, basically. But that's what's left of them. Their main component of being has been funneled into the Earth itself, the planet itself, and these 2 trees. And I really think the 2 trees are interesting, but we're going to talk about them in a minute. First, we're going to talk more about Wisties. These are also called firefolk, flutterglows, or fire sprites. And the name Wisties itself means the wise ones.
Aw.
So even though they're called this name to this day, it's still sort of recognized like these were the wise elders. They're very small winged humanoids, as you saw. They look like little moving flames. I think this drawing is very cute. These two Ewoks just playing with the Wisties.
Yeah.
They had a holiday in their honor called the Festival of the Wisties. But to the Dulocs, those bastards we were looking at a little earlier, they were prey. They caught and ate them.
Oh my gosh.
And sometimes they would cage them and put them in little lanterns just to torture them. So
God.
Dulocs were just a bunch of fuckers. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see the difference between them. It's like bees versus wasps, these things that like cohabitate and are similar enough. But like one is this cute thing that makes all these like honey candies all day, and the other just stings whatever it sees. So
I really want to go to the Festival of Wispies. Like, imagine like being there, seeing them fly around as we honor them. Like,
yeah.
that would be so amazing. It reminds me of like in Stardew Valley, we have the Moonlight Jellyfish Festival.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Festival of the Wisties is probably something to behold, especially now that you know that these were the original inhabitants of the planet that like created everything for the Ewoks.
Yeah, I love this world building.
It's fascinating. And this
Yeah.
is just the tip of the iceberg. So the two trees, which I think are very interesting, are the Father Tree, which was the tallest tree on Endor and was worshipped as a god by the Ewoks. That's the Father Tree here, the very tall one. So Logray, my favorite shaman, he possessed a branch from the Father Tree that he used to call upon the spirit of the Father Tree so he could commune with what he thought or understood to be a spirit of the tree, but what it really was a bunch of these Endor, the species that came before, sort of like combined into this hive mind within the tree to further guide the moon of Endor through the future when they weren't around anymore. So that's what that really was. And then the Tree of Light, the other tree that was sort of like the sister to this Father Tree, was also held sacred by the Ewoks in Bright Tree Village. I wonder if that's where the name came from. And in their beliefs, it gave off a holy light, and that's what kept the village safe from daylight incursions by the Night Spirit. And we are going to talk a lot about the Night Spirit coming up, because the Night Spirit is just a name that they gave to one of the old ones, one of the creations by incest of the old gods that we talked about that first time. Thargoragrot, the great bug, the evil spider queen, who just laid siege to Endor over centuries and centuries. So interesting lore there. But why I think this Two Trees lore is interesting specifically is because it reminds me of this Tolkien lore that I just learned about from the Lord of the Rings universe. So in the Lord of the Rings universe, there were also two sacred trees in the time like before any of the stories most of us have read from the Lord of the Rings. These two trees were designed by like the equivalent of the Celestials in the Lord of the Rings universe to create light for the earth. One gave off sunlight and one gave off moonlight. This was before there was a sun and the moon in that world. And why I think it's a parallel is because what happened to these two trees is they were laid siege to by Ungoliant, the queen of the spiders,
Oh my
who I
gosh.
think is very similar to Thargoragrot in the Star Wars universe. Very similar character. I thought about that instantly when I was reading deeper into this lore, and then I realized, oh shit, there's also Thargoragrot, who's like Ungoliant. And I don't think this specific thing happens the same way, because in Lord of the Rings, Ungoliant actually like poisoned the two trees and destroyed them.
Okay.
I don't think that happened to the two trees on Endor, but I'm just wondering, like, wow, that was right there. I was really thinking it was going to happen when I started reading the stories. Like, oh my God, I know what this bug queen is going to do on Endor, but like it didn't happen. So interesting connection all the same.
Yeah. It does have a like a biblical parallel.
There's a biblical parallel? Okay. I'm interested what you're thinking.
Because there's the tree of life in the Garden of Eden.
Oh, yeah.
Some people believe it's the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil are two separate trees. And I guess the spider bug monster parallel would be the serpent. And
That
like,
makes sense.
yeah, poisoning the well of humanity.
Yeah, it's true. It also makes me think somehow of Avatar, like the movie Avatar, with the giant tree of souls or whatever it was called, where you
Yeah.
could plug yourself into it. That's what the Endor thing makes me think of, which makes me wonder if like maybe that's what it's like in the Avatar planet, because that's also a gas giant moon like Endor. And maybe there was a precursor race there that like put itself into the earth and became this god they all worship. That's what it was reminding me of left and right. But who knows? I don't know anything about Avatar lore. Maybe that's true and we don't even know it. But to read directly from Supernatural Encounters for a bit, this is the story of the Endor. So the Endor did not engage in violence. These original inhabitants of the Endor moon could not now abandon the teachings of the Celestials, but neither would they allow their pristine world, which they called Tana the Lesser, to become victim to the predations of the evildoers. So they basically had a dilemma like Aang at the end of The Last Airbender. They knew something awful was happening and they would probably have to either kill it or get rid of it somehow, but they refused to. So instead of just fighting a war, they did this instead. They were among the few firstborn who had not fallen prey to the architect's designs, so they were not seduced by Talatni, the green goddess, or any of those other ones that had like taken a lot of the inhabitants of the universe and recruited them to an evil cause. So instead, they employed their gifts wisely to avert the ravages of the wars. But as a precursor race, their world was a target, and so there was much they'd given thought to in preparation for what had to be done, and all of them, down to the last child, were willing to make the necessary sacrifice. That's hardcore.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But what they did was, to ensure the stability of their planet in the face of the kinds of attacks that had devastated so many, the Endor ensured that Lesser Tana itself would be self-sustaining and unaffected by extraluminary forces. They constructed powerful organic engines that were sunk deep into the heart of their satellite. In the event of an attempt to override these, a backup source had been fashioned that worked in concordance with Iblim, their primary solar body, and the Endor gas giant, Tana the Greater, which would supersede the engines and correct problems. So they have created this thing that basically just protects their planet no matter what. Even if they try to disable it, it just comes back. It's like they made Endor invincible in this weird way.
Wow.
So this source was guarded by 4 powerful beings that the Endor bioengineered for protection and to ensure additional overlap. It is for these reasons that there was no Endor Holocaust, as some had feared following the Death Star's destruction. So what that's referring to is a lot of people have made the theory over the years that, like, after they blew up the Death Star over Endor, wouldn't the debris of the Death Star just rain down onto Endor and just cause fire and fury all over and exterminate the Ewoks? Like, a lot of people have thought, like, the Ewoks probably went extinct after Return of the Jedi on account of that. But this is proposing a theory for why that couldn't have happened and wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Because there was actual supernatural things guarding the planet from that and anything like that. So the beings they raised were referred to as the monitors by the Endor. And the 4 would later be called the season deities by the Ewoks. And various other races also referred to them as such. Each monitor was given their respective attendants as well. So the monitors are from the Ewoks cartoon.
Oh.
You think we're describing this badass thing that's like some kind of... This is what they look like.
Oh.
These are the season deities, the monitors of Endor. That's the leaf queen who represents the fall.
The leaf queen.
Yeah.
The flower queen who represents the spring, the sun king who represents the summer, and then the winter king here. And you think they're not badass? Here is what some art from Supernatural Encounters depicts them like.
Oh my God.
Take a moment and watch this.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so to identify everybody in this battle going on here, we do have the leaf queen here in the corner. The flower queen with her crown of rose, the winter king and the sun king. The sun has just like got this blazing star head. Like, who would ever mess with that?
That's awesome.
But the villains they're doing battle with on Endor here. In the far left, you have this like undead rotting Wendigo thing. That guy's name actually is Wendigon, and he's one of the undead or the immortal gods of the Sith, actually, or sort of an honorary member of them. Not one of the main 6, but another sort of evil force tied to them.
Okay.
He's the king of rot, basically.
Honorable mention.
Honorable. Yeah.
And he kind of just lives on Endor. He goes from being like frozen and inactive to like suddenly coming to life and just bringing death and destruction. Right next to him, this sort of spider queen looking woman with the like mandibles on her chest. That is Morag herself in an original form that she held before she was that thing we saw from the cartoon.
Yeah.
In this time, she was called Moragaram, which is a palindromic version of her name. And anything that's a palindrome in Star Wars, I always find is connected to the bugs. Bugs in Star Wars are always palindromes, like the Killiks that we always talk about. They're palindromic, like the word Killik is like you can spell it the same way. Thargor Grot is a palindrome. Every bug is a palindrome, so you can tell that's who that is. She actually has the staff.
I was looking at the stone. That's
the Sunstar Shadow Stone that she is wielding with this staff, and there is an Ewok in this picture going after the stone here. This robed witch thing blasting lasers out of its eyes. I think that's a wizard of the night spirit, one of the minions of Moragaram. that we're going to talk about a lot as well. And you can even see in this picture, there's some Wookiees or some Wookiee-like creatures that are throwing their hand into the battle. I think those are emissaries of the Jakshik, who were the progenitor race of the Wookiees at this time, that sent some muscle to aid Endor in these battles. So they threw their hat in the ring. And that's this battle that just rages on Endor. There are a lot of battles of Endor that took place before the Battle of Endor that we know about. And they tended to be more like this, with like gods just duking it out in the forest. These deities of the seasons. So more about the original inhabitants. The Indor, they hadn't stopped there by raising the monitors. All the creatures that inhabited Lesser Tana needed protection, and the Indor did not believe that some lives were greater worth than others. Determining that the best way to ensure the survival of everyone would be guardians selected from the peoples, animals, and plant life. They fashioned by means of the intricate Tanaic art of Yeb Nug. This is what we're talking about, where it's not like any other use of the Force. It has its own language, its own way of incantations and stuff. Those who were thereafter known as the Protectors of Endor. On one continent alone, 4 primary guardians were brought forth and given innate abilities. The Duloks. You think they're just evil? They weren't originally. They were meant to guard the swamps. The Yuzum to oversee the mountains. The Garial to protect the grasslands and the plains, and the Ewoks to guard the forest.
Interesting.
Okay.
The first 3 did not think much of the short furry Ewoks, but they would see their worth in the days to come. So Ewoks are not just native to this planet, they were commissioned by this elder race to be protectors of Endor. They're not just these little furry guys that don't know what they're doing. They were meant to be guardians. That's the secret history of Ewoks right there. It's probably why they were so competent against the stormtroopers, because that was just another day for them. The next threat that came to Endor. They'd seen worse before.
Yeah. Love them.
The other 2 that we mentioned here that were not mentioned before, those guys on the left are Yuzum, the protectors of the mountains, supposedly. They're native to Endor, but one did play in the band at Jabba's palace.
Yeah. That's why it looks so familiar.
Yep, that's where you know that face from. And these lizard men are the Garial, who didn't have a name yet. Until supernatural encounters, they were just called the Lizard Warriors. But they're just big lizards that like shoot arrows and just kind of mess stuff up. Reptilians. To augment so many so quickly, the Indor had to drain their inner reserves. The Indor knew they would not truly die and were not unduly attached to their physical forms. They would live on, albeit on a different plane of existence, in the heart of the world itself. As to their augmented races, they would neither be perfect nor immortal, but they would live long lives, provided they remained in harmony with one another and the Great Spirit. I guess that's the answer to our Ewok question. Like, why did they live such long lives and then maybe not later in the future anymore?
Yeah.
Maybe they used to, but they kind of lost their way a little. And they did, if you think about it, because they started this war against the Duloks. Like, they became enemies when they were supposed to work together. That might have been part of the cause that led to them being punished in this way of like, you don't get to live like 200, 300 years anymore.
Yeah.
Just like the Bible.
It's very biblical. I think it's also very Lord of the Rings as well, because that was sort of like how humans were in the Lord of the Rings, I believe, where like they lived on that one island that eventually sank like Atlantis. I don't know my Lord of the Rings lore too well, but I think humans that lived on that one island of Numenor, I think it was called, were very long-lived like the elves, but they lost their way and their island sank, and the humans that are just in Middle Earth now are just plain old humans. So kind of this lost glory here. But I do want to draw attention to the name the Great Spirit here at the end, because that refers to the Father of Lights, the God of all gods in the Star Wars universe that created the Celestials as his angels, basically. The Ewoks knew who that was. They called him the Great Spirit as opposed to the Night Spirit. There's no pictures of the Father of Lights. It's up to your imagination what he looks like. So I just put a picture of Wutzek here, his sort of prime celestial angel, just absolutely destroying a cultist here. They did know of Wutzek on Endor as well, but they called him the Light Spirit as opposed to the Great Spirit. So they knew a lot of the Celestials and the deities of the time, and they gave them their own names. Horlus, the son of Wutzek, was known as Hexprak to them, because I guess that means something in their Tanaic language. But he did aid in a battle once by destroying one of the great spider queens, just reducing the spider to this little tiny spider.
And that's the origin of spiders.
There you go, yeah. There was also the Endor Gate. This is another interesting thing to note about Endor, the planet, and its sort of neighboring solar system area. The Endor Gate was a black hole, which acted as a gate to Ilithorion, and this was right next to Endor. So amplifying the already, like, this is a crazy place within this universe.
Yeah.
Let's just put a door to the dark dimension right next door to them. And the Endor Gate was created by Colden Design, one of the architects here, this guy with the lava face. Colden Design created a lot of black holes in the universe that were just gates to his home dimension of Illithorion. And these were used as portals through which his dark forces and the forces of the other architects and old ones just took over whatever they could take over in the galaxy. Supernatural Encounters says, through such windows were sent entire planets and satellites populated with deadly armies.
Jeez.
So that's just what happened in those days.
Oh, wow.
It was not a great time to be alive, but
Yeah.
maybe Endor was the best place you could have been back then. They were
Especially
prepared.
in the Force.
Yeah, they were well guarded. It was never taken over. You got to give them that. They won every time. Strange temporal anomalies have also occurred around the Endor Gate, including C-3PO and R2-D2 going back in time in the Droid series once. That's where that happened. And it's because it's connected to Aperon, the infinity dimension of time, as well. In Aperon, it is said that the shattering of the Sunstar Shadow Stone, which we already talked about, that resulted in the creation of a white hole, and that enters into a rare alignment with the Endor Gate. This cosmic event produces an eruption of coherent energy in Aperon, which is then vented into Sky River through the Endor Gate, explaining some of the temporal anomalies that occur in that region of space. So that's why.
Okay.
If you are in the wrong place at the wrong time around Endor, you could go to the future or the past, or you could just get flung to the other side of the galaxy. Strange things happen there. I think it's kind of used as a catch-all just to like fix some Star Wars lore inconsistencies. Like, okay, that all happened to happen around Endor. Let's make it so this area is just unstable in time. That's why it is. So we're back to her, Thargora Grot, this eldritch bug from Illithorion. Great pictures of her here.
Yeah.
The invasion of Endor happened during the Empyrean Wars because Thargora Grot, who does have this long, long history of waging war on the Forest Moon, it's because she believed she was designated to conquer it. So the old ones came into agreement with the immortal gods of the Sith. And this was an alliance that was made because the immortal gods, remember they had their 9 hells, their planets of 9 evil worlds. And there were 6 of them that sat on 6 of those planets and had thrones, ruled over it, but there were 3 that were empty. First, they tried to get the architects, Talatni, Colden Design, and Splendid App to sit on those thrones. They refused. So when those 3 created offspring, they just switched over to recruiting them instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
at this time in the galactic scale of history, one of them, Manal, the gray ooze thing, was absent. He'd been confined to his own planet because even his like brothers and sisters were like, no, we don't want you around. You're just this ooze that eats things. You're too dangerous. We're going to like put you in prison. So he's not around.
Gross.
Yeah, they didn't like him. Who would? But convenient, there's 3 of them now. So the immortal gods go in recruiting mode and they're like, wouldn't you like to sit on these 3 thrones and rule the entire galaxy from our evil, deep, dark core of Illithorion? And they're kind of like, yeah, we don't know. Maybe that's for us. Maybe it's not. But they do kind of get convinced in this certain way. They're promised these prizes. Like all 3 of them are promised, like, all right, in the war that's to come, there's going to be gifts given to you. Like Typhogem was offered the sacred world of Tython, among others, the one that Grogu sat on the little rock on eventually and called to Luke Skywalker on. That planet was promised to Typhogem, the Cthulhu knockoff. To Thargora Grot, there were other planets, but the main one that was promised to her was Lesser Tana, and she became very obsessed with it. So the promise that was made, to the matriarch of the swarm, I bestow upon you Alara and Ouroboros, and Lesser Tana, where your daughters will find many upon which to feast. So it was all just basically so she could eat the Ewoks, you know?
Yeah.
And she became known as the night spirit to the Ewoks and all of Endor's people because she was just basically the ultimate evil constantly assailing them and all her minions. So the night spirit, feared by all Ewoks, worshipped by the Duloks, though, of course. Ewoks believed that the Tree of Light kept her away. Interesting when you think about the Lord of the Rings thing, where the Spider Queen ate the Tree of Light. This one keeps the spider away. Also, it was believed that she desired the Sunstar for its ability to raise evil spirits on Endor. That's something the Sunstar can do, apparently. Which is like, why is the Sunstar the one that does that? Why is it not the Shadow Stone?
It might be like a life thing, like light is life. So like bringing stuff back to life.
Maybe it is. It's like the Soul Stone in Marvel, just this thing that controls life.
Yeah.
I bet if you looked enough through Star Wars lore, you could find the equivalent of every Infinity Stone.
Oh, yeah.
There's
I
probably
believe it. Yeah.
I believe it. So there were servants of the Night Spirit, the dragon-like mantigrews, which were native to Endor. These awful pterodactyl-looking things just fell to her side and served her. And there were also evil wizards. This evil wizard here was known as the Stranger and appeared in the show, the cartoon, Ewoks. Mm-hmm. I think you saw something that looked a lot like that wizard in the art where the four season deities were doing battle with the evil.
Yeah.
But there were other wizards of the Night Spirit. There were plenty of them. And they looked like that for the most part. Awful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine having to go up against that every day. But you can look closely at that and see it's a bug. So it makes sense. The wizards of the Night Spirit, as said in Supernatural Encounters, are central to the legend of many tribes, including the Ewoks and their Duloc adversaries. They're believed to be evil creatures that arrived from another realm through a portal called the Endor Gate. That's from the Testament of Sindel Tawani. Remember that name?
Yeah.
What?
So
The kid?
Sindel Tawani lived, grew to
Testament?
adulthood, and eventually, so I think in the first time we talked about Supernatural Encounters, we talked about Arthur Hextrophan going on trial, the guy who wrote the book.
Yeah.
And they have this whole trial arranged where people have to like testify to say like either he's someone we should believe or he's an absolute loon and we need to throw out this text. So one of the ones that testified in his favor was Sindel Tawani as an adult woman who had seen all this stuff on Endor and was using it to basically say like, no, I believe him because this fits right in. Interesting thing there. So we know now she did not become a Sith Lord, or maybe she became a Sith Lord after this.
Maybe, yeah.
Afterwards. That's a good way to like hide and be like, this is right, but I'm also going to do something evil later on. No one would ever suspect me after this.
Modern women can have it all.
Yeah. Maybe because she knew all this, she was like,
Sith Lord.
she could have been seduced by something from Illithorion.
True.
Never know. On too close to the Endor Gate. So the Night Spirit Wizards, these were servants of Thargor Agrat from the Great Black Nest in Illithorion. I don't know if we talked about the Great Black Nest ever, but just so you know what that is, Thargor Agrat and her basically infinite army of bugs constructed within the dark dimension of Illithorion a giant spider web that stretched across solar systems, like through the black nothingness of space. It was just a gigantic bug nest. And it was so amazing, even though it was horrifying, that even like the celestial Horlus, who's like pure good, went and visited it once and said, this is pretty cool. Like, I admire this. Even though he was there to basically punish the evil bugs within, he was like, all right, I'm here to slay you, but
Gotta give it to you.
your digs are pretty nice. That's the Great Black
impressive.
Nest. So within that Great Black Nest, the wizard class advanced the order by means of their thaumaturgical prowess, conquering, subduing, and destroying where needed. That was their job. I love the word thaumaturgical. I didn't know what it meant before I read this book, as is the case with many words used in this book.
Yeah.
But it just means miracle worker, basically.
It's a spell in D&D.
Is it really?
Yeah.
They use that word in D&D too?
It's a cantrip. And it's basically, you can make any sort of sound, visual. It's a minor spell, though.
Yeah. It's not probably the same as it's used in
No.
Supernatural Encounters to refer to like gods making things happen that would
No,
never
it's
happen
like-
in nature. It's just tiny.
A little light.
A different thing.
Little magic trick.
But the Wizards of the Night Spirit. There was Morag Aram, who we talked about as Morag earlier. Morag Aram was a vassal queen of Thargor Agrat, one of her oldest daughters of whom she was the most proud. And Thargor Agrat bestowed upon Morag Aram, these are really long names and I hate having to say them over and over, the right to basically try and subdue all of the planet Endor and all of its Endor civilization, because this is still at the time when it's the Precursor race living there. It's not the Ewoks and all of them, just them yet. So she arrived on the planet Endor and basically laid siege to it with an army of bugs. All right? So that's the setting of this.
Yeah.
The Endor, though, as we've discussed, were totally prepared. It says the ruling council of the Endor had not been unprepared as self-appointed watchers of the skies. I think that word is interesting because I think it's a reference to the band Genesis. I don't know if either of you have ever listened to like the old Genesis records, but the band Genesis had a record called Foxtrot that opened with a song called Watcher of the Skies. And I put a little picture of Peter Gabriel, lead singer of Genesis at that time, in this costume that he performed in as the Watcher of the Skies.
Honestly, I thought it was going to be a Star Wars character.
It looks kind of like Star Wars-esque, but no, this is the band Genesis. And I think it's cool that it was referenced here because I'm a huge fan of Genesis. You need to listen to their song Supper's Ready sometime because it's full of biblical allusions to like the book of Revelation and stuff. You would get a kick out of it. It's a 20-minute song though, so devote a little time.
That sounds about right. Very like epic.
Yeah, they wrote a lot of songs like that were about that long and just dealt with mythology and stories that were crazy. The entire album, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, is just sort of an underworld epic in this weird way. I don't understand
this
it.
is right up my alley.
Yeah, you need to analyze this stuff. Maybe we'll do a PowerPoint about Genesis lore sometime. But enough of that for now. The Watchers of the Skies on Endor had observed the incursion of that immense vitiate force from the nearby Endor Gate, where all the evil comes from. Basically, if something evil comes to Endor, it's coming through the Endor Gate. Portal to hell right next door. They sent out emissaries to alert their offspring and the firstborn siblings. So the invasion was completely unsuccessful. This was an absolute stomp on the part of the good guys. But Moragaram, even though defeated, stayed hidden on Endor for a good bit of time, like a long time after this failed attempt to take it over. She was even just frozen there for a long time, like frozen in ice and kept there for millennia in this hidden palace. So that's a thing. Here's some more great art from Supernatural Encounters. I think this depicts the second Battle of Endor, whereas that was the first against the Indor. The second one happened after the Indor had gone into the planet's core and just raised the monitors and the rest of these protectors to do battle in their stead. You got the Sun King here, just looking absolutely badass, ready to protect his planet. I think the others in the sort of aura orbs are the other monitors. The black bug here with the staff on the other side of things is Lord Soros, I think. I think that's his name, or Daritha Soros. The Daritha thing is kind of a precursor to Darth because he was appointed as essentially a bug Sith Lord by Thargora Grat, the queen of the bugs. And he was sort of a dark emissary that was sent ahead of her to like go warn planets like the Dark One is coming. Kind of like a Herald of Galactus sort of deal. But you can look in the background of this picture too and just see these invading bugs, gigantic insectoid abominations. And in the sky, that's got to be Thargora Grat herself. Towering, immense, Lovecraftian horror coming for the Forest Moon. Roxy, what do you think about that?
She's purring.
Roxy likes this stuff. Roxy loves these creepy bugs.
Well, I mean, she has her gray dark fur, so she probably she would join in.
Yeah, she would fit right in the great black nest of Hilithorion. But now we get to talk about Adderhive. This is one of my favorite Ewoks that's introduced in Supernatural Encounters. That's not a picture of him. That's just a picture of Logray, the other shaman. But this was a shaman in this time, Adderhive. There's no pictures of him in the book, so we got to fill something in. He was just a novice shaman during the time of this horrible invasion. He had been discreetly communicating with the Indor elders who'd entered the Sunstar and had finally received the answer to the question he'd asked, how do we banish the Wizards of the Night Spirit? Everybody was getting absolutely pushed to the brink. They needed to get rid of these invaders, and the only one who seemingly could figure out how was Adderhive. I think the story went that the shaman that was the elder, the one that was supposed to like know what to do, just got decimated, like got taken by surprise, blown up. So it's just this little guy left behind like, oh no, what do I do? He's like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, like that one Mickey cartoon.
Oh yeah.
But he figured it out. He communed with the Indor elders and they showed him the incantation and the place to go to use it. So he actually went into Moragaram's fortress, where Moragaram was frozen at this time. And she's right next to, I believe, the statue of the Windigon, which is also inactive. But just picture it, like walking into this eerie, abandoned fortress surrounded by thorns. And there's just these two towering evil things, inert, but they're there. And he goes between them, and he is able to utter an incantation, the correct formula. And he watched as the rift in the Endor gate above opened, and he followed it up with a spell called Yoa Eda, Tanaic magic, and that sent the roaring wizards of the Night Spirit hurtling back into the ruined worlds of Ilithorion. So this little guy saved the day.
Yeah,
he opened the Endor gate, and he sent all the bad guys through it. Just said, like, you go home.
Bye.
So pretty badass, right? Anybody who thinks Ewoks aren't cool, respect this guy. Like, just listen to this story and then tell me you don't think Ewoks are cool. He saved his whole world and he sent a horde of monsters just back to where you came from. So when he accomplished that, he was nicknamed the Djinn going forward.
Oh.
So he was basically viewed as a miracle worker and an absolute hero. And now we get to talk about what happened to Morag. So Morag Aram stayed on Endor long after the death of her mother. So you remember what happened to Thargor Grad eventually. Just got a little too close to the sun with her ambitions, and Wutzek the Celestial just appeared and absolutely fried her from the inside out. No contest.
Okay.
So Thargor Grad is gone. Every other spider queen that she created is just vying for her place, basically, like who's going to ascend to the throne. It's this very sort of spidery political drama going on. One of the main contenders, of course, is Morag Aram, but she's stuck on Endor. And some people that are like loyal to her, like some of the Wizards of the Night Spirit, want to find her. So they go and try and find Morag Aram. And a long chain of events happened. I don't get all into them here because there's lots of stories involving her and other bad stuff happening on Endor. But what eventually happens is very unfortunate for this potential inheritor to the throne of Thargor Grot. So she's just an evil witch, just trying to do evil witchy things. And she gets this tribe of mandrills, these Endor mandrill monkeys, that some entertainers visiting the area crashed onto Endor with. So it's like a circus train crashed, apparently, essentially. And these monkeys came out and they were just monkeying around. But Morag, who's just in desperate need of minions, sees these monkeys and she's like, okay, they're dumb, but they're strong. Maybe I can like charm them to my side and make them stronger and have this troop of like evil flying monkeys, like it's the Wizard of Oz or something.
Yeah.
But it goes very wrong because the Ewoks, who are not into that, appear and they're disrupting the ritual. That's where it comes from that she might be a mandrill instead of a tolga, which is that species, because there's a note in the book that it says, when the authors conceived the idea of Morag being a part of the tolga race, they forgot that the Endorian mandrill has the same face Morag has. So interesting. Maybe the tolga race, what that's implying is that race was created for something else long after the Ewoks cartoon, just trying to explain like, okay, here's the race that she could have been. But in the time of the actual cartoon, the face came from the Endorian mandrill. So that's just correcting it. And here's how this came to be. Logray, the Ewok shaman, he was concerned that Morag was harming the mandrills, and so he intervened. The Ewoks disrupted Morag's ritual, and it backfired, transforming the daughter of Thargor Grot into the form she would ultimately hold, that of the mandrill.
Oh, no.
She became one of them. Straight from the text, to Logray's horror, her appearance began to shift. Looking upon a basin filled with murky cave water, Morag roared as her face and her body were settling into that of a mandrill itself. What have you done, fools? She tried several different incantations, but nothing would change her back. So
Brutal.
the once great Spider Queen looks like that now. Absolutely awful
rough.
fate.
That is, yeah.
That's rough, buddy.
You can pretty much figure that from that day on, she's pretty bitter, just wants to harm the Ewoks and get her revenge. And she does meet a pretty nasty fate in the end. I think she gets thrown into lava like Gollum, essentially. Although I don't know how that went down exactly. Something about a volcano eruption. I'd have to watch the actual episode of Ewoks. This just reinforces again and again to me that, like, I want to see the Ewok stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the cartoon. I haven't seen the movies. I want to now.
Do you know how many seasons the Ewok show is?
I think it's just 2 or something. I don't think it went on for that long. So it could be watched.
It can be watched.
If someone has a guide for it that's like, just watch these parts and the rest are filler, I can't imagine someone's devoted time in their precious mortal life on Earth. Maybe it could be me. Maybe this is my, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to figure out what's essential. Yeah. Roxy made her way over to Emily now.
I was like, what? It's turned. I'm like, okay.
Scooped her up.
But that's the story of Morag. Pretty tragic if you think about it. This once great queen of Illithorion to be stuck as this monkey.
Little granny
that's rough.
But one more thing about Morag.
I know she was hot.
She's a shapeshifter. and that's what she could also turn into.
Oh, then she's
So
fine. What is she mad about?
I don't know. She could turn into that apparently. So like, why are you stuck as the monkey? But this form is actually given more of a story and a name within Supernatural Encounters. I think when she is this like beautiful, I don't know what animal that is. Maybe it's an Ewok. Maybe it's supposed to be, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, it was very cat-like.
Yeah, almost like cat or fox or just vague, like furaffinity.net. But
What?
that form is known as Lindronigan. Like it has a name of its own. And she used that form to actually once seduce a servant of the Winter King and actually like fell in love with him and had children on Endor.
love that.
Interesting story there.
Is this like a different personality? Or
It
is she
kind
just...
of is. Like,
Interesting.
I don't know how it works exactly. She just takes this form and a different name. Maybe it's all like charades from there, but it's a definite different thing. So interesting to wonder how many people saw the Ewoks cartoon and the episode where she turns into this for a little while, and something changed within them. Something may have been awakened. I wonder for how many the Ewoks cartoon was a source of figuring out that certain thing about themselves. From Lindronigan here, the form of Moragaram.
Well, it reminds me of those like cakes where people like they put in people they find hot and stuff like that. Like, hear me out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cakes. Now I kind of want to put her on that, but
Yeah.
hear me out,
Hear me
guys.
out.
Yeah.
And then show the hot photo. Like, she could transform into this, okay?
Yeah.
So hear me out, guys.
But yeah, and all that to say, like, I don't know why she can't just take that form all the time if she was so like horrified at being turned into the monkey. Like,
So that, yeah.
just turn into
I get
that,
it.
you're fine. Maybe it's like it takes more energy, or I don't know.
That's what makes me think it's like a different personality. Like
Maybe
she
it
like
is.
doesn't know, maybe.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I could write like a fan fiction about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just weird Endor magic stuff. I don't really know how it works. It's stuff we can talk more about in the next Ewok episode
Yeah.
because we're almost to the end here, I think. The last thing I wanted to show is just this great art from Supernatural Encounters. I bet you know what that is now that we've learned the story.
Sindel.
That's Sindel Tawani
Yeah, all her
visiting
family,
the
yeah.
graves of her family on Endor.
Crazy.
And the force ghosts of all her companions, who are all dead, are just there with her. So you got her parents and her brother. This thing that's right next to Wicket the Ewok here, I think is called Teak. That was another creature that appeared in these Ewoks movies. Apparently also dead. And the guy leaning on the tree is this like old hermit mechanic kind of guy that was aiding them in the movies as well. So all dead. Everyone this poor girl
Gosh.
knew is just dead. And she goes to Endor and just pays her respects, you know?
She has Ricket.
Yeah, Wicket's still there. Wicket will always still be there. But man, it's like the more you think about it, the more you realize this is the most tragic story in all of Star Wars. Like,
Yeah.
you think Anakin is tragic, Padme is tragic. Like, no.
They had
It's
people with
Sindel
them, at
Tawani.
least.
Oh my God. Okay, let's go back to that slide because I just want to like show you this child again and make you think.
She's so young. We passed her. I
She
think,
looks
yeah.
like 5 years old.
Oh, there she
Yeah,
is.
there she is. Yeah, that's who. Who? Why did they make this child go through so much pain?
Yeah.
Whose idea was this?
Oh my god.
For some
Like-
cute Ewok movies.
Like, I get killing off the parents, but why the brother?
They
Like,
killed
right.
their brother.
why
They
couldn't
killed
the
everybody.
brother be a part of a story?
Yeah. Crazy, crazy lore. But that's the end of our Ewok discussion for today. That's as much lore as I felt like cramming into this one. But we can definitely do more. I think there's more to be discussed. There's more Ewok stories that are within Supernatural Encounters. There are actually 4 entire sections of the book that are just about Ewoks.
Ooh.
And it's in accordance with the seasons because the monitors,
Yeah.
the deities
Oh,
are,
yeah.
there's like the winter tales of the Endor moon, the summer tales of the Endor moon. Like
I
there's,
love this.
it's like 4 chronicles of Endor and the Ewoks. And they go into detail about all these incursions onto Endor from the forces of Illithorion. They go into like the stories of the monitors and the thing about Moragaram transforming into this furry to seduce one of them. And all of these kind of crazy things happening all the way up to the present, essentially. Like I think Supernatural Encounters even like gets all the way up to Return of the Jedi in this fashion. Like it's,
Oh wow.
it's some of the last stuff timeline wise that the book addresses is on Endor. I think the author has gone and said some of the best source of Star Wars lore that there is the Ewoks cartoon. just because like no one knows about it. People don't take it seriously, but if you really analyze it, the implications are immense.
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially for the supernatural side of Star Wars, because there's like fairies and magic trees and all this kind of stuff where
An Endor gate.
the Endor gate that all the evil comes through. Like there was one of these slides too that I don't think I talked about it, but I did have a picture of something coming through the Endor gate, like a comet, but it was actually a spaceship of the Stranger, the villain of the story. Like that thing right there.
Okay. Yeah, like a crack in the sky.
Yeah, it's like they saw it as this crack in the sky, but it was a portal to Illithorion, the dark dimension. And through it came this, what they thought was a meteor, but it was a starship that housed this last wizard of the night spirit called the Stranger. That was like an antagonist they used for a while after they killed Morag. So the show went on a little longer than maybe it had any right going, but we'll take anything Endor lore, you know?
For some reason, I just want to see that creature on a spaceship. Like, you don't really see something supernatural, like that kind of like ghosty. This kind of like
Just hovering on the
around
deck.
the spaceship.
Yeah.
I want to see it. I just want to see a short little clip of it flying around.
I know. That's why I love Star Wars, though, because you can combine like sci-fi with these crazy like Dungeons and Dragons type things and these fairies, and it all fits somewhere. There's something for everyone in Star Wars. I will always say that. Whether you like hard sci-fi that's nothing but like spaceships and science, or whether you're into like fantasy and fairies, there's a side of Star Wars for you. Maybe it's on Endor. You never knew that before, but now you do.
Wow, we learned a lot. I can't wait
did,
to learn
yeah.
more Ewok stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Rickett loved it.
The good thing about today is that now that we've got all the background lore pretty much covered, we can go specifically into some Ewoks, some specific stories of more specific Ewoks that are worth telling.
Okay, yeah.
Nice.
I'm excited.